In this episode, we're going to make the idea of an AI governance charter feel concrete and approachable, even if you have never seen a charter in any organization before. A charter is not a magical document, and it is not a pile of formal language meant to impress executives. It is simply a clear statement that explains why a governance program exists, what it is responsible for, who has authority to make decisions, and how those decisions connect to business goals. When people skip this step, they often end up with scattered AIUs across teams, conflicting rules, and surprises that show up as incidents, compliance problems, or angry customers. A good charter reduces those surprises by making the governance program real and visible, rather than an informal set of opinions. It also helps people understand that security is not trying to block value, but to enable value responsibly. By the end, you should be able to describe what belongs in a charter, why each part matters, and how to keep it aligned to what the organization is trying to achieve. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our Course Companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first thing to understand is why alignment to business objectives is the heart of a good charter. Organizations build or adopt AI because they want benefits, such as faster decisions, better customer experience, improved productivity, or new products. If the governance charter ignores those goals, people will treat governance as an obstacle rather than a support system. Alignment means the charter speaks directly to the business outcomes, while also defining the boundaries that protect the organization from harm. A beginner can think of it like rules for a sports game. The rules exist so the game can be played fairly and safely, not so the players cannot play. In a charter, alignment shows up as language that connects risk controls to business trust, customer confidence, legal compliance, and operational stability. When the charter clearly states that governance helps the organization use AI safely to achieve its goals, it becomes much easier to gain buy-in from stakeholders. That buy-in is not optional, because governance only works when people participate. A strong charter starts with purpose and mission, written in plain language that any stakeholder can understand. Purpose answers why the governance program exists and what problem it is solving, such as reducing unmanaged risk and ensuring AI use is responsible and compliant. Mission describes what the governance program will do continuously, not just once, like setting decision routines, approving high-risk uses, and ensuring evidence exists for important choices. Beginners should avoid thinking of mission as a slogan, because mission needs to be actionable and connected to real work. A useful mission statement points to outcomes like consistent decision-making, safe data use, accountable ownership, and monitoring that catches problems early. This matters for the exam because many questions test whether you understand that governance is a program, not a one-time checklist. If the mission does not imply ongoing work, the charter is already weaker. After purpose, a charter must define scope, because scope controls what the governance program is responsible for and what it is not. Scope can include which AI systems are covered, such as internal models, vendor services, or any system that produces automated decisions. Scope can also include where the systems are used, like customer-facing interactions, internal productivity tools, or high-impact decisions affecting people's opportunities. Scope should also clarify what kinds of data and dependencies are included, because data flows are often where risk hides. Beginners sometimes assume scope should be everything, but governance that tries to cover everything equally becomes slow and can be ignored. A better approach is to define scope broadly, but define levels of oversight based on risk, so low-risk use gets light review, while high-risk use gets deeper review. The charter should make that principle explicit so people understand why some projects face more scrutiny than others. This keeps governance aligned to business speed while still protecting the organization. The charter also needs to define authority and decision rights, which is a simple way of saying who can approve what. In real organizations, confusion about authority causes delays, conflict, and unsafe shortcuts. If a business unit thinks it can deploy an AI tool without review, but security thinks it must approve, the result is either friction or bypass. A charter solves this by stating which groups or roles have approval authority for different decisions, like approving a use case, approving data use, approving a vendor, or approving production release. It also defines escalation paths, so when stakeholders disagree, there is a known method for resolution rather than personal conflict. Beginners should understand that decision rights are not about power, they are about accountability and speed. When authority is clear, people can act confidently, and when authority is unclear, people either stall or act recklessly. Another essential part of the charter is defining roles and responsibilities at a high level, so the governance program does not become a faceless committee. Roles might include executive sponsors, business owners, technical builders, security reviewers, privacy reviewers, and compliance partners. The charter should clarify who owns the AI system, who monitors it, who maintains documentation, and who responds when something goes wrong. Ownership is especially important because AI systems can behave unpredictably, and without an owner, there is no one to coordinate response and improvement. Beginners should notice that responsibilities should include both building and operating, because AI governance is not only about approving deployment, it is about ensuring ongoing monitoring and change control. The exam often tests for this by offering answer choices that focus only on launch without addressing operations. A charter that includes ongoing responsibilities makes the program realistic and defensible. A governance charter should also define the principles and guardrails that will guide decisions, because principles prevent inconsistent choices when new situations arise. Principles might include risk-based oversight, transparency of decisions, accountability, privacy by design, and minimizing unnecessary data use. These principles should not be abstract, because they must translate into how decisions are actually made. For example, if the charter includes a principle of risk-based oversight, it should also describe that higher impact uses require deeper assessment and stronger evidence. If the charter includes a principle of accountability, it should define that every AI system must have a named owner responsible for outcomes and risk. Guardrails are the boundaries, like forbidden uses, required assessments, or mandatory documentation for specific categories of systems. Beginners can think of guardrails as the lines on a road that keep you from drifting off, even when the road curves. Principles and guardrails make the charter useful when the organization faces something new and uncertain. A critical part of aligning to business objectives is defining how success will be measured, because what gets measured gets managed. The charter should describe high-level goals and the types of metrics that indicate progress, such as coverage of inventory, completion of assessments for high-risk systems, adherence to review routines, and reduction of unresolved high-risk findings. Beginners should understand that metrics are not just for reporting, they are for steering the program. If leaders see that many systems have no clear owner, they can fix accountability. If leaders see that assessments are delayed, they can adjust resources or expectations. The charter does not need to list every metric, but it should state that measurement is part of the governance program and that metrics will be used for decisions. This supports alignment because business leaders care about outcomes and risk, and metrics connect governance activity to those outcomes. Without measurement, governance can become a set of meetings without proof of value. The charter should also address how policies, standards, and procedures connect to governance, because governance is the decision layer, not the full instruction manual. Policies describe what must be true, standards describe the required way of doing things, and procedures describe how to execute steps consistently. A charter should point to the fact that governance sets expectations and approves key artifacts, such as policies and assessment methods, while program management ensures those artifacts exist and are maintained. Beginners sometimes confuse a charter with a policy, but they serve different purposes. The charter establishes the governance program itself, including authority and scope, while policies govern behavior and controls. This distinction matters because exam questions may ask what document establishes decision authority or program purpose, and the charter is often that answer. When you can separate these concepts clearly, you reduce confusion in both studying and real-world reasoning. Change is another area the charter should anticipate, because AI environments evolve quickly and governance must remain effective under change. The charter should describe that the governance program will review and update its rules and expectations when regulations change, when threats change, or when the organization expands its AI use. It should also establish expectations for change control around AI systems, so updates and new data sources do not appear without review. Beginners should remember that change control is not about preventing improvement. It is about preventing surprise risk. A charter that ignores change is basically assuming the organization will never learn anything new, which is unrealistic. By setting expectations for periodic review and triggers for reassessment, the charter keeps the program alive. This is a big reason governance is a program and not a project. A practical way to keep the charter aligned to business objectives is to treat it as a living agreement between stakeholders rather than a one-time deliverable. In real organizations, alignment is maintained through regular communication, clear decision records, and feedback loops where outcomes influence future governance choices. A charter should make it clear that governance exists to enable safe adoption, not to slow everything down. That can include establishing service expectations for governance, like predictable review timelines for different risk levels, so business teams know what to expect. Beginners should appreciate that predictable processes reduce the temptation to bypass governance. When governance is unpredictable, people work around it, and that is when risk becomes unmanaged. A charter that emphasizes consistency and predictability is both more secure and more business-friendly. As we wrap up, an AI governance charter is the document that makes the governance program real by defining purpose, scope, authority, responsibilities, guiding principles, and success measures in a way that supports business objectives. Alignment happens when the charter clearly connects AI value to safe, accountable decision-making, rather than treating security as a separate world. A strong charter clarifies who decides, what decisions must be made, how risk is evaluated, and how evidence is maintained, so the organization can move quickly where it is safe and slow down where the impact would be serious. For a beginner, the key is to see the charter as a map that prevents confusion, not a legal artifact meant to intimidate. When you understand what belongs in a charter and why, you can recognize exam questions that are really asking about authority, scope, or accountability. That confidence comes from knowing that behind the letters and formal language, a charter is simply a practical agreement about how the organization will use AI responsibly.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.